So what does a hurricane do to a Beck Spider? Hoovie's Beck Spider? Take a look. Let's get started. No, his Beck Spider was not in a hurricane. It was not in an accident. It kind of looks like it was. But we've got the transmission out. It's been sent off for warranty work. It's had a whining noise. You guys saw in his video it had some issues. It looks hideous, doesn't it, guys? Let me show you something else that's kind of hideous. These hinges right here, these are door hinges for your house, like the bathroom door in your house. And it came from the factory with those on it for the rear hood. Kind of weird, isn't it? But the video is not about this today. I just wanted to scare you guys about a hurricane. We're going to talk about investments today and how much money you put into a vehicle years ago versus today is a lot different. Let's hop on over to the Jeep. So here we have a 2005 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with the 4.7. Yes, that engine, the 4.7 that blows head gaskets left and right. But luckily this one is not blowing head gaskets, it's running just fine. It does have several issues that we're going to take a look at today, but all in all the customer is going to meet or exceed $3,000 into this 2005 Jeep. What we're going to talk about as well today is that 5-10 years ago, that amount of money would be an instant brick wall, like hit the brakes. This is a 05 Jeep, it's worth $3 grand. I'm not putting $3 grand into this thing. Let's just stop, we're not fixing it. That used to happen quite a lot. But just this year, as inflation has hit, those numbers are not deterring people anymore because the prices of a new car or a used car is so high. And even the value of this vehicle is now way higher than it used to be. Now it's worth it to put the money into the vehicle based on what it costs to replace it. But before we jump in too deep, let's hear a word from our sponsor at Policy Genius. Besides making sure your car is properly maintained, you also need to protect it from the surprise accidents that can total your car. It's not shocking that I have a large insurance policy on my small fleet of vehicles, and the last thing I want to do is waste money on high premiums. Policy Genius can totally help find a lower rate for you by comparing top insurers from Progressive to Allstate. Policy Genius is your one-stop shop to find and buy insurance that you need. Click the link in the description or just head to policygenius.com/wizard and answer a few questions. Policy Genius will show you your price estimate for policies that fit your needs and help you understand your options. If Policy Genius finds a better rate than you're paying now, they'll even switch you over for free. Policy Genius has saved customers an average of $1,250 per year over what they were paying for home and auto insurance. The Policy Genius team works for you, not the insurance companies. You can trust them to offer unbiased help and advocate for you at every step until you're covered. A couple of things that Policy Genius does not do: they do not add any fees, and they do not sell your info to third parties. They do have a 5-star review across Google and Trustpilot. And since 2014, Policy Genius has helped over 30 million people shop for insurance, and they can help you save too. Head to policygenius.com/wizard to get your free home and auto insurance quotes and see how much you can save. And trust me guys, in today's car market, we're spending more on repairs because buying a new car is just so much higher anymore than it used to be. Getting the best deal for your insurance is very important to protect your investment. Speaking of investments, $3,000. Now that we're all covered, let's talk Jeep. You guys have seen these things all over the road. There are literally millions. I would think at least that there's millions of these Jeep Grand Cherokees on the road. They're everywhere. This one is in actually very good shape. I've seen a lot of these along the side as we look down at the doors and things that are just dented, beat up. The cladding is gone. The wheels are all scraped up, but this one isn't. I believe it's been taken very good care of. And there's the tail lights of the infamous Grand Cherokee. These are actually very good vehicles. Sometimes the engine can give trouble with like the 4.7 on these, but the Jeep itself, they're actually pretty decent. As we go down this side, you can see it's not dented, it's not rusted. It's not even scratched. Amazingly, it's in pretty good shape. Let's go ahead and open the hood and take a look around. The first thing you're going to notice, which is really strange, and I really had to look a little closer to see what it is. There's these little boxes wired to the strut brace. And at first I thought, what is this, some kind of power adder, extra 10 horsepower, made in China type thing? But it's not. They're ultrasonic speakers to deter mice and rats. Maybe the customers had some issues with mice and that was their way to solve the issue. Apparently it's been working. We don't have any issues with chewed wires or vacuum lines or anything, but that's just kind of odd. I was like, what in the world is that? Here's our 4.7 V8, and like I mentioned, they do have issues with blown head gaskets. You can tell on the radiator cap they have a very high PSI rating, 18 PSI. I've seen Dodge Dakotas with this engine that have 20 and 21 PSI. And really, when you see something that high, you start to wonder, did they have issues with the cooling system? Was it a very effective cooling system? And maybe that was some of the issues with the head gaskets blowing. But it definitely is a design flaw, and it is a very common issue on these. On these, when the head gaskets go, you can usually find that sometimes the heads are cracked. It can easily be $2 or $3 grand, all the way to $5 or $6 grand. It can get really expensive really fast on these engines. Luckily, like I said, this one isn't having any of those issues, but it does have an exhaust leak that's pretty loud on the driver's side. You guys can hear that. It's pretty prevalent. It's very loud. So we heard the noise. Let's play the game of what is it? I'll give you guys 3 choices and see which one is right. Number 1, is it the EGR crossover pipe or the EGR pipe? Number 2, is it the exhaust manifold itself? Or number 3, is it the exhaust gasket or the flange gasket? Either one of those gaskets. And the answer is kind of a trick question, really. I know that the exhaust gasket is leaking, but I also know that these are known for cracked exhaust manifolds. So much so that when I was scanning for a gasket set to get prices together on this vehicle, I saw that they had 30 manifolds in stock. I was like, whoa. I know I've replaced a few in the past, but I didn't know it was that bad. But we'll definitely know once we get the manifold off, because it has to come off anyway. If it's cracked, we're going to have to replace it. And luckily, it's such a common problem. They're not $200 or $300 for the manifold. They're like less than $100. So that won't be that big of a deal. That's pretty much in the engine bay all we have. Let's let Mrs. Wizard give you guys a tour of the interior.
Okay, well, ladies and gents, there we go. It has 121,000 miles on it. Definitely got quite a few miles on this little guy, but it doesn't look too bad, really. It does say perform service. I imagine he'll get to that in a little bit. As we move back, though, you're going to notice that we're kind of caught in a taupe environment. Yes, taupe the color. We have dark taupe and light taupe. And luckily it's showing up better on the camera. In real life, the contrast isn't quite so distinctive. You feel like you're very much in a very monochromatic environment. As we scroll down, very common, easy to control HVAC controls. Not a whole lot of options there. We've got tow haul and off-road. So not too many options were put onto this package, but again, not everyone needs everything under the sun to operate their car. It looks like it's a little dusty dirty. Looks like it could have a little bit of cleaning in that center area, but other than that, nothing's broken. Everything just needs a good wipe down. As we move over, we do have leather seats. There isn't much bolster on them, but this is a Jeep, and unless you're going on the trails, you probably don't need too much more than that seat belt. Does have all the contents of the glove box in that seat there, because as we look over there, we have the whole glove box tray taken out. As we look to the back seat, we can see that again it has more leather, has a little bit of two-tone going on those seats as well. There is a lovely silver windshield cover as well. As we look up, headliner's looking good. No sagging in here like we did on the last video with that XJR Jaguar, but we can notice that looks like there's a missing handle right there. Nothing major. Maybe they were going around on some trails going a little hard and the person back there gripped a little too much. Got a few little maybe marks and scuffs, but nothing too terribly bad. Nothing that, again, bucket of water and a brush can't take care of. As we end up here at the steering wheel one last time, we can see a little bit of marking up there. Just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But otherwise, simple controls. We can control the cruise. Basically, that's it. We don't have any other controls over there on that steering wheel. No radio controls or anything like that. Keeping it simple to keep that focus on the road ahead of us. So, I'm curious what it looks like underneath. Let's get this up in the air.
Okay, this time around we'll actually start from the back. And the first thing I'm seeing is there is a little bit of rust. It's not serious, but it definitely is there. I don't think it's dangerous. Here's our rear differential. Everything's nice and dry there. Check our brakes, which are about 60 or 70% remaining. Here's a fishing line, Mrs. Wizard.
Oh.
It even has lead weight on it.
Wow, that's an interesting addition.
Yeah, kind of weird. Okay. Must have been out fishing somewhere. The shock is nice and dry. Everything looks good there. Sway bar link. It's good. Brakes on this side is good. Sway bar link is good. The shock is good. Everything's looking pretty good over here. Albeit, like I said, a little rusty. Here's some more of our rustiness. I'm not even going to touch it, but you can see it's kind of laminated there, or delaminating, I should say. Check our girthy shaft out here. Everything looks good there. No flex discs here. The joint feels good there. There is a tiny bit of seepage here, but it's really nothing very serious worth a tear down yet. That will be something we clean it and we monitor it and see if it continues to get worse. We do see quite a bit of oil slick going on here. Danielson has actually looked at this and he says it's the valve cover gaskets. It was something I really couldn't show you from up in the engine bay, so I waited till we got it up in the air. And you can see up through there, the back side of the cylinder head is all wet with oil. And it's just pouring out all the way down through here. So all this is engine oil. Transmission pan itself is nice and dry. Again, this is just engine oil. And we make it here to the oil pan. It's nice and dry. And one thing the customer was having issue with is when they put it from drive to reverse or vice versa, there's a very loud clunk. And I know from having a Jeep Commander or various other Jeep products that have the all-wheel drive system on them, it seems like the front differential is always clunking around. And there's 3 mounts. There's one right here, which is got some cracks in it. There's one up here, and there's a third one right up here. Whenever I would go back and forth between the gears, you could literally see it clunking really hard, back and forth, clunk, clunk, clunk. We're going to have to pull down the entire differential, take the shafts out, and then replace all of those bushings. I've done several sets of them. It's a common issue. Well, that would take care of all the clunking going from reverse to drive. And we look to the front of the engine. On these years of Chrysler vehicles, even the Dodge Rams, when you see the oil right here, that doesn't mean that there's a leak. It means someone did an oil change. You can see where the oil filter is. It spills down this little spillway, and they never clean it. They just leave the sludge on there. That happens so much on these. You think, oh, it's leaking oil, but it's not. It was actually leaking oil when they did the oil change, but it's not currently leaking. Look at the front of our engine, the water pump and power steering pump, everything's nice and dry. The thermostat housing is nice and dry. Everything looks good. Look at our radiator. Fan's good. Everything's looking pretty good other than that. Let's take a look at these brakes. They're a little rusty, but they're not bad. The brakes are 50% up front. The struts are nice and dry. These steering rack boots are nice and dry. Sway bar link is good. CV boots there is good. We'll move to the other side. 50% on the brakes. And you can see this ring of crust right here on the rotor. That means it's been sitting, doing some sitting for a little while. But otherwise, the brakes look good. The CV boots are nice and dry. The steering rack boot is also dry. Sway bar link is good. And the tires look pretty decent. They're Toyo Open Countries, which are very, very good tires. I've had them before.
Kind of interesting. There's less rust at this end than there was at the back end of the car.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I don't really have an explanation for that.
More rust proofing up here with the oil leak?
Very likely, it could be. But the oil is not all over the place. It's just in some small areas. So I don't know. I don't know why that is. But anyways, let's get this thing back on the ground. So all in all, the issues found on this Jeep are not major catastrophes, although it will tally up pretty fast, mainly because 2 of the issues require some teardown and a lot of man hours. Getting the differential out is not going to be done in 15 minutes. It takes a couple, 3 hours to get it out and put it back in, and then we got time to punch out all the bushings, press them out and everything. The exhaust manifold, you saw how rusty this thing is. The book time is a few hours, but I added an extra hour because I know all those bolts and all those things are going to break and snap. And I tell the customer up front before even starting, I'm adding an extra hour based on that fact. If you would rather not do the job because of that, that's fine. You can come pick up your car. The customer said, oh no, I'm happy to pay that. I want this done, so let's go ahead and do it. So we've been upfront with the customer. We're going to charge them an extra hour because of all the rust. And I know from experience, it's worth that and more. There are things on here that are going to break taking that apart.
So Wizard, what do you do if all the bolts break off? What is your solution?
You just go ahead and break them. And then you get the manifold off. Then hopefully there's stubs stuck out and you can work with it and usually get a vice grip. Sometimes you can actually weld a nut to the remnant and get it out. It may be possible that we have to drill a couple of them out, which probably will add even more than the extra hour I quoted, but I'm happy with just 1 extra hour. And I know from experience, the Jeep Commanders with the Hemi in them, oh my goodness, the exhaust manifold is a nightmare on one of those. You can go through all the forums and people say, yeah, I tried to do my manifold gaskets on my Hemi Commander. I'm ready to go drink 5 cases of beer now. This is crazy. It's not that bad on these, but it is still pretty bad.
Can you mess it up?
Yeah, if a person doesn't know how to drill out bolts properly, they could drill into the water jacket, they could damage the holes and oversize the cylinder head, they could really do a lot of damage. Most of the drilling out bolts in the shop, I leave that to me. I let my techs get everything down to that point. I will drill the holes out. That's usually how I do it because there's no reason to damage the customer's cylinder head, and I don't want to buy one. So we get all those issues taken care of. $2,500, $3,000. It's going to be in that range. But like I mentioned, in this day and age, it's worth it. I wouldn't have thought so 10 years ago, but now it is. So if you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to fix this actually very nice Jeep, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's so many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.